Sometimes you know you're lighting a match in a room full of dynamite. You feel the rough strike strip against the match head. You see the flicker of sulfur catch fire. You smell the smoke. And you do it anyway. That's the most honest thing I can tell you about what happened. So if you're here for some sob story about a girl who made a simple mistake, you're in the wrong place. But if you want to know how a person can take a perfectly good life and burn it to the ground for a thrill, stick around. You might learn something. My name is Alara. I'm 27 now, but this story starts 4 years ago. Back then, I thought I had the world figured out. I worked as a junior curator for a contemporary art gallery downtown. A job that sounded impressive at dinner parties and let me wear a lot of black. And I was dating Liam. Liam worked as an urban planner for the city. He designed traffic flows and zoning maps, or something equally methodical. On paper, we were perfect. He was 30, stable, grounded. He had his life assembled in that neat, infuriatingly organized way some people do. His socks were paired, his spices were alphabetized, his love for me was just as categorized, just as predictable. But here's the secret no one knew, the one I kept locked away behind a polite smile. Liam was never meant to be my forever. He was practice, safe, reliable practice, for when I finally met the man who would actually set my world on fire. Don't get me wrong, Liam wasn't a bad guy. He was decent. Kind even. Which in a twisted way made what I was doing feel less monstrous. He was the kind of man you brought home to your parents, the kind of man who remembered your coffee order and the name of your childhood pet. He also noticed everything. And I mean, everything. The way I'd twist the silver promise ring on my right hand when I was telling a lie. How I always wore a darker shade of nail polish, a deep crimson on nights I went out without him. The tiny, almost imperceptible shift in my tone when I was hiding something. Most men are blissfully oblivious. They move through the world and see only the surface. But Liam read people like he was deciphering a blueprint. He saw the infrastructure of a person, the load-bearing walls of their personality, the hairline cracks in their foundation. I used to think it was romantic. Then it became inconvenient. You see, for the last 5 months I'd been seeing Javier. Javier was my boxing instructor. And he was everything Liam wasn't. Where Liam was careful, Javier was impulsive. Where Liam was thoughtful, Javier was visceral. Where Liam wanted to talk through every minor disagreement until it was resolved into neat logical points, Javier wanted to forget it ever happened and move on to something more physical. And the chemistry? God, the chemistry. Liam was fine, considerate, attentive. But with Javier, it was cinematic. It was the kind of raw, desperate passion you see in movies. The kind of movie Liam would probably pause every 10 minutes to analyze the character motivations instead of just enjoying the ride. I had a system worked out. A whole architecture of deceit. Liam thought I had gallery nights with my work friend Chloe, that we were networking, sipping cheap white wine and complaining about our bosses. In reality, I was meeting Javier at his studio after the last class of the night. The place smelled of sweat and leather and clean adrenaline. We'd move in the dim light of the empty gym, the silence broken only by the sound of our breathing. It was raw, primal, everything my life with Liam wasn't. Chloe covered for me. She was a good friend, even though I could see the lie sat uncomfortably on her. She'd answer the phone if Liam called, her voice bright and convincing. Oh yeah, Alara's just in the bathroom. Liam never questioned it. Why would he? He trusted me, completely, which made the whole thing so much easier. And somehow, so much worse. The thing about Liam was he wasn't possessive. He never checked my phone or demanded to know where I was every second. He just observed. He quietly paid attention and stored the data away in that analytical brain of his. Like the time I said I was at a quiet wine bar with Chloe, but came home with the faint smell of chlorine from Javier's apartment complex pool clinging to my hair. Or the time I claimed my phone died, but he saw my social media status was active all night. He never called me out on it. Not directly. He'd just look at me with this quiet, knowing expression. A look that said I see the discrepancy. And then he'd let it go. I kept telling myself it wasn't that bad. We'd never explicitly talked about marriage. The promise ring was a gift for our 1-year anniversary, not an engagement ring. It was a promise of, what? A promise to keep trying. That was all. And this wasn't going to be forever. Eventually I would have to choose. Of course I would. And when that time came, I'd handle it, like an adult. I just wanted to explore my options first. What's so wrong with that? The rain was lashing against the windows of our apartment that Tuesday night, a relentless drumming rhythm that matched the anxiety in my chest. I had decided tonight was the night. Time to rip off the band-aid. I'd been rehearsing this conversation for weeks, running different scripts in my head. I would be gentle, kind but firm. I'd tell him we'd grown apart, that we wanted different things from life, that it was better to end this now cleanly before resentment could curdle what we once had. Mature, civilized. No unnecessary drama. Liam was on the couch watching some documentary about sustainable architecture. Of course he was. I sat down next to him, the leather sighing under my weight. My fingers, without any conscious thought, found the silver ring on my other hand and began to twist it. Round and round. Liam, I started, my voice sounding strange in the quiet room. We need to talk. I reached for the remote to pause his show. A symbolic gesture. My needs are more important than this documentary right now. He looked at me. His expression was calm, unreadable. He didn't look surprised. We do, he said. His tone was flat. Final. I blinked. That wasn't in the script. He was supposed to be caught off guard. Hurt maybe. Confused definitely. Not this eerie calm. Liam, I think we both know that things between us have been… He cut me off. Not rudely. Just factually. Been what, Alara, you mean knowing that you've been sleeping with your boxing instructor, or knowing that you think I'm too stupid to notice? The air left my lungs in a rush. My stomach plummeted, a stone dropping into an icy well. My carefully constructed reality shattered into a million pieces. I fought to keep my face a neutral mask, but inside my mind was scrambling, a frantic, panicked mess. How long? How long had he known? How much did he know? I don't know what you're talking about, I stammered. The lie felt flimsy and pathetic even to my own ears. And then Liam did something I'd never seen before. He smiled. But it wasn't his real smile. It was a cold, sharp imitation. All teeth and no warmth. You only twist your ring when you're lying, he said, his voice as level as a surgeon's scalpel. And you changed your nail polish to midnight crimson before your last gallery night. The one where Chloe's girlfriend texted me, asking why you both bailed on their dinner reservation. The silence that followed was suffocating. Heavy. It pressed down on me, the weight of every lie I'd ever told. I was cornered. There was no way to salvage this. I couldn't be the mature, compassionate one ending a relationship that had run its course. Now I was just the cheating girlfriend who got caught. My composure cracked. Okay, fine, I snapped, my voice sharp with defensiveness. Yes, there's someone else. But it's not just about him. I gestured between us, a desperate attempt to regain control of the narrative. To make this my decision again. Us. This was never supposed to be forever, Liam. You were safe. You were practice. Practice for when I found my real partner. The word hung in the air between us. Practice. It was like a physical blow. I saw it land. I saw the last bit of warmth drain from his face, leaving behind something hard and brittle. He went completely, utterly still. And in that moment I knew. I had just said the one thing I could never ever take back. Practice, he repeated. The word was hollow, devoid of any emotion at all. It was colder than anger. Don't make this ugly, I said quickly, trying to backtrack, trying to soften the wound I had just inflicted. You knew I was out of your league. We both knew this was temporary. Liam stood up. So fast I actually flinched. He didn't say another word. He didn't yell. He didn't argue. He just walked straight to our bedroom. I followed him, my heart starting to race with a new kind of fear. This wasn't going according to plan. Where was the fighting, the begging, the drama? He pulled his gym bag from the top of the closet and started throwing clothes into it. T-shirts, jeans, socks. Not with frantic rage, but with a detached, methodical efficiency. As if he was packing for a weekend trip he had planned weeks ago. What are you doing? I asked, my voice trembling slightly. You're just… leaving. He pulled open his sock drawer and emptied it into the bag. He didn't even look at me. You just told me I was your participation trophy, Alara. Why would I fight for that? My phone buzzed on the dresser. A harsh electronic sound in the tense silence. Both of our heads snapped toward it. The screen lit up with a text from Javier. Still on for tonight, I lunged for the phone, my hand closing around it, but it was too late. He had already seen it. Liam actually laughed. But it was the most bitter, broken sound I had ever heard. It was the sound of something inside him dying. Wow, he said, shaking his head slowly. You couldn't even pretend. Couldn't even wait until I was out the door. It's not what you think, I said, clutching the phone to my chest like a shield. The lie was automatic, useless. God, you're being so emotional. This is exactly why I need a real man. The words were cruel, designed to hurt, to provoke a reaction. Any reaction. Liam zipped up his bag and slung it over his shoulder. He finally looked at me, his eyes clear and cold. A real man, he said. You mean someone who will let you cheat on them, someone who won't notice when you lie. Congratulations, Alara. Sounds like you found him. He pointed at my phone. I hope he remembers your allergy to shellfish. My mouth fell open. It was such a random, specific detail. A detail I'd told him once years ago after a bad experience with some questionable shrimp. A detail he had logged, stored, and remembered. A detail Javier would never even think to ask about. You're really just walking out, I said, my voice barely a whisper. I moved to block the doorway, a sudden desperate urge to keep him there. To rewind the last 10 minutes. After 4 years, Liam stopped in front of me. He looked me dead in the eye. You ended us the second you called me practice, he said, his voice low and steady. I'm just making it official. He brushed past me. I grabbed his arm. My fingers felt weak, clumsy. You'll regret this, I choked out. He stopped, and very gently, one by one, he peeled my fingers off his arm. His touch was final. No, Alara, he said, his voice laced with a profound sadness. I only regret not seeing the real you sooner. The front door clicked shut behind him, and I was alone. Alone in our apartment with the sound of the rain and my own ragged breathing. For the first time in my life, someone had walked away from me first. The power I'd always held, the ability to be the one who chose, the one who left. It was just gone. I stood there for a long time listening, waiting for the sound of his footsteps coming back, waiting for the door to open, waiting for him to say he overreacted. But the only sound was the storm outside. He wasn't coming back. My phone buzzed again in my hand. Javier. Everything okay? I stared at the screen, the glowing letters seeming to mock me. I tried to summon the feeling of excitement, of triumph. I was free. This was what I wanted, right? 4 years with Liam. Gone. For what? For good sex and the cheap thrill of sneaking around? No, I wouldn't let myself think that. I had made my choice. Liam was too sensitive, too analytical, too invested. Javier was confident, uncomplicated, fun. This was an upgrade. I texted him back. Be there in an hour. Then I spent the next 3 days in a state of suspended animation, waiting for Dale to contact me. Nothing. No angry texts. No missed calls. No demands to arrange a time to get the rest of his stuff. Just complete, absolute silence. By the end of the week, I was a wreck. I was checking his social media obsessively. He'd unfollowed me on everything. Blocked my number. It was like he had performed a digital surgery, excising 4 years of our life from the internet as if it never existed. Our shared Netflix account logged me out with a blunt password has been changed. Our carefully curated Spotify playlist, the one titled Us, just vanished. Even our shared Google Photos album was gone. Poof. 4 years of memories deleted with a few clicks. I swallowed my pride and created a fake Instagram account. A burner. Just to see what he was posting. Nothing. His last post was from 2 weeks ago. A boring, artistic shot of his morning coffee. It was like he had vanished from the face of the earth. The silence was a form of torture. It was driving me mad. I was used to men fighting for me, making grand gestures, begging me to come back. Liam's complete and total absence felt like a punishment, but I couldn't even figure out what I was being punished for. I had been honest, hadn't I? I'd told him the truth. It wasn't my fault he got more attached than he should have. Javier and I started spending more time together, but without the secrecy, something felt off. The thrill of the forbidden was gone, and what was left felt surprisingly shallow. He was great in bed and fun to go out with, but the conversations were paper thin. We talked about workouts. We talked about movies. We talked about what to order for dinner. When I tried to bring up something deeper about my feelings about the breakup, he'd expertly change the subject. Or he'd kiss me to shut me up. Let's not get heavy, he'd say, with a charming grin. 2 weeks after Liam left, I was at Javier's apartment. His phone kept buzzing on the nightstand. A relentless vibration against the wood. He ignored it at first, but when it rang for the 3rd time, he sighed, snatched it up, and stepped out onto the balcony to take the call. I could hear the muffled rumble of his voice through the glass door. It was low, serious, not his usual carefree tone. I caught phrases. I know, baby. I'll be home soon, I promise. When he came back inside, he had that charming grin plastered on his face again, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. Who was that? I asked, trying to sound casual. Just work stuff, he said, avoiding my gaze. Complicated client. That's when I started paying attention. Really paying attention. The way Liam always had. I started noticing the little details. How Javier never wanted me to stay the night at his place. He always had an excuse. An early client. A meeting he had to prep for. How he was always vague about his weekends. Just catching up on stuff, he'd say. How he'd never introduced me to a single one of his friends. Or posted a single photo of me on his social media. To his online world, I didn't exist. A cold, ugly suspicion began to grow in my gut. But I pushed it down. I ignored it. Liam was gone. That was what I wanted. Javier and I could finally be a real couple. I could stop lying. Everything was working out exactly as I'd planned. Except, Liam's silence was a constant humming noise in the back of my mind. A void. I missed having someone who actually listened when I talked about my day at the gallery. I missed someone remembering that I hated cilantro. I missed having someone who knew the names of my coworkers and the complicated dynamics of my office politics. Javier was exciting, but Liam had been present. Fully, completely present in a way I had taken for granted, like the air I breathed. And now I was suffocating. 3 weeks after the breakup, I was driving home from work. On a whim, I took a detour past Liam's new apartment complex. The one he'd moved into after leaving mine. There was a moving truck parked out front. A big one. I pulled over to the side of the road, my heart hammering against my ribs. I watched as 2 strangers in overalls carried boxes and furniture out of the building. A familiar floor lamp. The worn leather armchair he loved. Box after box labeled kitchen and books in his neat architectural handwriting. He was leaving. Not just my life. He was leaving the entire city. That night I did something I promised myself I wouldn't. I called him from a blocked number. It went straight to voicemail. His voice filled my car, but it was different. His old message had been warm, friendly. This one was sterile. You've reached Liam Peterson. Please leave a message. I hung up without saying anything. But I called back twice more. Just to hear his voice. I started probing our mutual friends. Casually at first. Hey, have you heard from Liam lately? Everyone was evasive. Chloe said she thought he'd mentioned something about traveling for a new project, but she wasn't sure. Even his sister Audrey, who had never liked me, just gave me a cold shrug when I ran into her at the grocery store. Maybe he needed some space, she said, her eyes full of accusation. She made it clear who she blamed for his disappearance. A month in, I was mindlessly scrolling through Instagram, a habit I couldn't seem to break. I saw a photo posted by some travel blogger I followed. It was a generic, beautiful shot of a sunset over a turquoise ocean. But in the background, out of focus, I saw a figure. A man with familiar shoulders. A familiar profile. The photo was tagged in Costa Rica. I stared at that picture for a full 30 minutes, zooming in, squinting, trying to convince myself I was imagining it, but the more I looked, the more certain I became. It was him. Liam was in Costa Rica, living his best life. Tanned and happy on some tropical beach while I was stuck here rotting in the ruins of the life I had destroyed. The thought that he was out there, happy, and not thinking about me at all, it filled me with a white-hot rage. I had expected him to be heartbroken, lost without me, pathetic. Instead, he was on vacation. He was probably already over me. I screenshotted the photo and sent it to Chloe with a string of question marks. She called me back almost immediately. Her voice was tired, exasperated. Alara, you need to stop this, she said. Stop what? I just think it's weird that he disappeared without telling anyone where he was going, I lied, my voice high and defensive. There was a pause on the other end of the line. He told people, Chloe said quietly. He just didn't tell you. That hit me harder than a physical slap. The idea that Liam had a whole support system, a whole life that didn't include me. That he had been making plans, sharing his pain and moving forward with people who were not me. It felt like a betrayal. Even though I knew logically I had no right to feel that way. My relationship with Javier, if you could even call it, that imploded around the same time. He grew more and more distant. He canceled plans last minute. He was always busy. When I finally confronted him complaining that he'd bailed on dinner plans for the 3rd time that week, he got defensive. I thought you wanted to keep things casual, he said, running a hand through his perfectly styled hair. That was when I was with someone else, I argued, my voice rising. Things are different now. Javier looked genuinely uncomfortable. Alara, look. I never said I wanted something serious. I thought we were just having fun. We've been seeing each other for almost 6 months, I cried. We're not just having fun anymore. Look, you're great, he said, and I could already hear the classic soul-crushing rejection coming. But I'm not looking for anything complicated right now. Complicated. Like I was a math problem to be solved. An inconvenience. That's when I decided to do some real investigating. I went on his social media, but this time I looked deeper. I looked at the people who tagged him in photos. It didn't take long. A single click led me to the profile of a blonde woman named Melanie. Her account was public, and it was a shrine to her relationship with Javier. Photos going back over a year, beach vacations, family dinners, a ski trip to Aspen. A whole rich, documented relationship that had been running parallel to whatever sham he and I had. And in the most recent photos from just 3 weeks ago, Melanie was wearing an engagement ring. I felt sick. Physically ill. I scrolled and scrolled, my thumb moving mechanically, watching their love story unfold while I had been sneaking around thinking I was the special one. Thinking I was the prize. When I confronted him with the screenshots, Javier didn't even have the decency to look ashamed. I never lied to you, he said with a shrug. Which was technically true, and that made it so much worse. I never said I was single. You never said you were engaged either, I screamed. He had the audacity to look bored. You never asked. I stood there in his perfectly minimalist apartment, the evidence glowing on my phone screen, and I realized with horrifying clarity I had thrown away 4 years with a man who loved me completely, for a man who saw me as nothing, more than a convenient distraction, a man who couldn't even be bothered to lie to me properly. 2 years. 2 years passed in a blur of humiliation and regret. 2 years of terrible dates with men who either lost interest the moment I showed any real emotion, or who I pushed away because they weren't Liam. 2 years of lying awake at night, staring at the ceiling of my new, smaller apartment, wondering where he was, what he was doing. If he ever even for a fleeting moment thought about me, I'd changed jobs. I was now managing a small independent gallery. I told myself it was a step up, but really it was just a change of scenery. An attempt to outrun my own ghost. Nothing worked. The hole Liam left was still there. A hollow ache in the center of my chest. Then on a random Thursday afternoon in October, I saw him. I was grabbing a coffee from our old favorite spot downtown, a place we used to go to every Saturday morning. I was waiting for my order when I glanced out the window, and there he was. He was sitting at a corner table on the patio, a sketchbook open in front of him. He was with a woman I didn't recognize. Brunette with an easy smile and athletic-looking arms. She was laughing at something he'd just said, her head tilted back in genuine delight. They looked comfortable, effortlessly in sync, in a way that made my chest tighten until I couldn't breathe. I just stood there, hidden by the reflection on the glass, and watched them. Liam looked different. He looked calm. Happy. In a way I wasn't sure I'd ever seen him, even when we were at our best. His hair was a little longer, brushing his collar. His skin was tanned like he spent his weekends outdoors, not cooped up inside. He looked like someone who had been living. Really living. The woman, Sophia, I learned later when I shamelessly eavesdropped as they got up to leave, was everything I wasn't. Where I was high maintenance and always needed to be the center of attention, she seemed effortlessly put together. Where I demanded constant validation, she seemed content to just exist in the moment with him. Where I had always been searching for the next best thing, she seemed genuinely happy with what she had right in front of her. I watched as Liam reached across the table and gently touched the back of her hand. The same gentle, reassuring way he used to touch mine, and something inside me, a wall I had carefully constructed over the past 2 years, just cracked open. This was what I'd thrown away. This was what I had called practice. This was what I had called settling. A man who loved completely. Who paid attention to the smallest details. Who showed up every single day ready to build something real. And I had demolished it, because I was arrogant and bored and thought I deserved more. When they stood up to leave, I panicked. I acted on pure, stupid impulse. I pushed through the coffee shop door, nearly colliding with them on the sidewalk. Liam, I said. My voice came out small. Pathetic. He stopped. His face cycled through a series of emotions in a split second. Surprise, recognition, and then something that looked an awful lot like pity. Sophia looked from me to him, her smile faltering. She understood immediately who I was. It was written all over her face, Alara, Liam said. His voice was neutral, polite. The voice you use for a distant acquaintance. How are you? I'm good, I lied. My own voice felt like a stranger's. You look You look really good. Thanks, he said. His arm moved almost unconsciously to rest protectively around Sophia's waist. A clear, unspoken signal. This is Sophia. Sophia offered me a polite, kind smile and extended her hand. Nice to meet you. I shook it. Her hand was warm and firm. I hated how genuine she seemed. It would have been so much easier if she was awful. We should get going, Liam said gently, but with an unmistakable finality in his tone. He looked at me, his eyes holding mine for a beat. They were clear of anger, clear of pain. They were just clear. Take care of yourself, Alara. And then they walked away. Together, I stood frozen on the sidewalk, watching them disappear around the corner. I heard Sophia say something that made Liam laugh. A deep, rich, warm sound that carried back to me on the autumn wind. A sound of pure contentment. A sound I had caused once upon a time, and a sound I would never cause again. I got in my car. I sat there in the driver's seat for a full hour. I didn't move. I just watched people walk by on the street living their lives. And I cried. I cried harder than I had in years. Harder than when Liam left. Harder than when I found out about Javier. I wasn't just crying for the loss of Liam. I was crying for the version of myself who'd had him, and who was too blind and too stupid to see what she had. For the woman who had been so convinced that she was destined for something more, something better, that she'd torched the best thing that had ever happened to her. The truth is, I did this. I did this to myself. There is no one else to blame. No excuse. No justification that holds up in the harsh light of reality. I chose Javier over Liam. I chose fleeting excitement over lasting stability. I chose hollow passion over deep abiding love. I chose the unknown not because it was better, but simply because it was different. I told myself I was being smart. Keeping my options open. Not settling. But Liam wasn't settling. Liam was the jackpot. And I was the fool who threw the winning ticket in the trash because I didn't like the color of the paper. I drove home. To my empty apartment. To my empty life. And for the first time I finally truly understood what I had lost. Not just a boyfriend, a partner, not just someone to sleep next to at night, but someone who actually saw me, all of me. My flaws, my insecurities, my sharp edges, and chose to love me anyway. Liam found someone who appreciated what he offered. Someone who didn't see his attention to detail as inconvenient but as a language of love. Someone who didn't see his emotional intelligence as a weakness. Someone who didn't mistake his kindness for naivety, or his love for desperation. He found Sophia. And me, I'm still here. Alone. Still bitter on my bad days. Still trying to convince myself that somehow this wasn't entirely my fault. Because admitting that I destroyed the best relationship I ever had for absolutely nothing, it's a pain so sharp it's hard to fully accept. But late at night, when the city is quiet and there are no more distractions, when I'm lying in bed staring at the dark ceiling, I know the truth. Liam was never practice. He was the real thing. And I was too blind to see it until all that was left was his ghost.